Hi, Blue.
Hello.
Week 3 is generally pretty interesting in SPCS as we tend to figure out which teams are better than others, we get an idea of the power rankings, and more importantly, teams start to figure out what they want to work on and what they want to focus on. So we're starting to see a lot of that in the matches, so a lot of teams look better or they look way worse. First match we had Goofy Goobers versus Sithcord. So in week 1, I really highlighted Roz, and I think this week he was also a key component for Goofy Goobers. Unfortunately, I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea what I'm watching because I'm watching Roz solo all of Sithcord while his whole team sits back and watches him take space, kill stuff, and do all the work. So I'm going to need the rest of his team to actually step up and help him because what he's getting away with is kind of criminal on all accounts.
I have some thoughts on Sith Cord. Let's make sure that we have our Lucio next to our Sojourn, and Roz tried to go in. He would get fucked, and we would win the fight.
I'd also really like to highlight Arrow on Goofy Goobers and the team for really taking the angle on first point Samoa. I think it was really good that they were able to control the high ground because it paid off even when they lost Godzilla, that they were able to win the fight later on. Second match, we have Eternal Surge versus Vitality Flash. This match was kind of a mess.
So I would like to talk about Rialto. There was multiple things that went wrong, and you guys did provide me with a little feedback. Yes, you guys have not practiced on this map, but that does not excuse the fact that our Kiri is with the wrong person and our Juno is with the wrong person, and we're running double hit scan into Junkrat, who's just holding a small room and trying to force them out over and over, because we all know that Junkrats love to play in small rooms, and we just kept on running into there and dying this entire map.
I agree with Blue. I really hated the Ashe Surge offense on Rialto. I definitely think this match revealed the typical Surge weakness of lack of adaptation to anything that throws a wrench in their plans. For example, the Junkrat. Because when errors in their execution is forced, the player's individual weaknesses come out as well.
I would also love to add a Vitality Flash that just Junkmain is overall the GOAT, and this man deserves more recognition. The stuff I saw this man do on both Rialto and Eichenwald was just insane. This man was putting the team on his back, and I don't know how else to describe it.
On a more negative note, I think we're running Brig into Sigfara poke on Eichenwald, so we kind of deserve to lose. We're also running double hit scan into a static poke comp as well. So I think both teams really need to think about what they're going to prepare for their future matches. In the third match, we had Back in My Day versus Ledux. Going into the first map, Ledux did not look ready for the amount of poke from Back in My Day. I think it really surprised them that Back in My Day genuinely had a better neutral than them mechanically. So I think the first map was just a total wash in favor of Back in My Day.
This match, to me, just proves that Andy is the best tank in the tier, and you cannot convince me otherwise. This man has been putting on legacy performances basically every single map. I think this man is a very key point in Back in My Day, and I really expect this team to be a top tier team.
To go more into Ledux having a weaker neutral, I think in particular, it's not a mistake that every time Buns Bronson played Lucio, Ledux lost, and every time he played Wu Yang, Ledux won. I think his Wu Yang is way better than his Lucio, and every time he was on the Wu Yang, he was able to contribute more to the fight, which led to a better neutral. Our next match is Eternal Beat Drop Bears versus Judgment Fold. I think Eternal Beat Drop Bears actually look very fantastic. They look like a well-oiled machine with generally great splits, anchoring, and ult timings. Their biggest hurdle is that they're a little held back by having not really any elite individual play. I think Ant in particular looks like a very solid hit scan. All the fundamentals are there from positioning to great mechanics. I think the clinic he put on Midtown offense, second point, that was just an Ant masterclass, that whole point. But if I had a nickel for every time I saw double hit scan from Eternal team, I'd have 2 nickels from this week. It's absolutely unforgivable that they were playing double hit scan on Midtown defense, and it led to them getting rolled.
Judgment Fold, I'm not gonna lie, their tank kind of just needs to watch their HP bar a little bit more closely before it's taking like a swing, because I saw them get blown up because they were at like half HP, no armor, and no resources. I just asked that we look at our HP bar a little bit more before we do that.
The next match we had was Freak Watch Omega versus Stevens Gray.
They didn't report codes, so I couldn't watch.
Freak Max versus Zookeepers. Map 1 was kind of a throwaway map on the side of Zookeepers, mainly because of the ringer they had. Never walked on Samoa. When they won the first fight and were holding the point, it actually looked like Zookeepers were on offense at a certain point. because their tank backed up so far backwards and he just never pressed his W key. As for the second map on Runasapi, I think there were a lot of mistakes on both sides on this map.
I would like to talk about a few things. There was overall just terrible ult usage from both teams, but there was way worse ult usage from Freakmax on this map. I think I saw, sorry Plungin, a terrible beat from you. I saw an OC that I think missed 7 or 8 shots from Gone Bonanzas, but I felt like both teams kept on just tossing ultimates out for fun. I can recall one point when Caster grabbed, I think, 2 or 3 people, and then his backline died to a vendetta. Solo vendetta, might I add. We just never communicated at all.
I think overall, when comparing these two teams, it's abundantly obvious that Freakmax are better as a team and mechanically as individuals. No shade to Zookeepers, of course, they are great players. But I think we can really see this, for example, on Surabasa, where Goat Bonanza is really to control the pace of the game by poking the tank out, as well as Colossus. And Water was also able to solo mark the Tracer and the Lucio with some assistance from Fungin later on. You can really see that Freakmax are able to control the pace of the game and that they are in control with better mechanics. However, on Runasapi, we saw Freakmax make way too many individual mistakes, which is what ultimately led to the map loss, and which led to them throwing a huge 120 meter lead. For example, we had Dove walking into a grav of their own free will. We had Fungin strafing in a Sojourn Disruptor orb. When he had ult in a fight that was very important. We had Water not pressing shift fast enough when he was staring at a Vendetta ult. We had Gone Bonanza shifting into the middle of Zookeepers while ulting. And all of these individual mistakes added up on Runasapi and led to the map loss. I'd also really like to highlight Commercial's Ash on Circuit. I think it's abundantly obvious that Freakmax were a better team because they were really only able to push when he was able to get first picks on first and second point. He had a pop-off moment, a really good pop-off moment on second point, but there's something to be said about being unable to win fights, even with ults, and relying on one player getting picks.
Freakmax, specifically you Fungin, let's stop being greedy. You're my favorite Lucio. We had a before shot Vendetta and we went out to chase her. She kills you, which means that your entire backline is now just free kills for a Vendetta. Let's not do that, man.
Next match, we have Aspertia City versus Crimson Flame. Before I go into this, I'd like to say that it's pretty clear that Crimson Flame had some discussions as a team. I think I have a good guess of what's going on with them. I think what they did was look at the match versus Oceanside Tsunami and decided that Orisa was their best showing and MTK's best tank, which it kind of is, to be fair, but then they decide to force Orisa everywhere. Unfortunately, I think there's a few problems with this. The first is that you're really facing clear comp losses, such as when you go up against Sig on Circuit or Zarya and Surabasa. We threw away maps for free. And then the second problem is that it's pretty clear the backline is just not on the same page as MTK or with the rest of the team. For example, when we take a look at the first fight on Samoa, Stewart, the flex support for Crimson Flame, waste time shooting at the Tracer so then their tank gets low, but instead of using Suzu efficiently, they waste it on themselves because they're taking a 1v1 duel, so that immediately results in an automatic fight loss. And then later on, they choose not to TP to MTK, which was a critical decision. And then in the last fight, they walked straight into Ramattra with form. So just looking at the gameplay, it speaks to me that there is really a great disconnect with the team. I think Crimson Flame might have also talked about off-angling because we saw a little Jossis and Toon off-angle on Samoa that worked out. But unfortunately, it's also pretty clear that Toon is uncomfortable with off-angling because we see him die immediately on Suravasa attempting it.
It is very clear that they are having like growing pains and trying to figure out what they want to do as a team. Something that made me giggle a little bit was the Junkrat on first point circuit. I saw this man double mine over and I thought he was kind of just going to die. And then I see him just kind of fuck up the entire enemy team.
The next match we have Air 409 Conflict versus Sane Trash Pandas. I think it's pretty clear Air 409 want to be a really heavy rush team, but they're a little too disconnected with it because they keep hard pushing with no cooldowns, split focus, and both supports, Ayame and Azure, are clearly too scared to push.
Something I want to highlight from both teams is Air 409's Tippy did numbers on circuit. He gets a 5-man flux super early on, kills the entire enemy team. It was beautiful. I loved it. On a similar note, Freakzoid got a big dominant ult on Esperanza. I have to say that Freakzoid might be just the best Domina player in the entire tier.
Next match, we have DYS Kalos versus Boingus. I'm not sure what happened on Samoa, or if McRice's all aim no brain mentality leaked to the rest of the team, but what I saw was the whole team trying to shoot a blocking ram and walking up to do it, which is why they died instead of taking better positions and shooting the Lucio that was free riding to their left. I also think Blur looked really good on the side of Boingus. He was their substitute DPS player, I believe, or their third DPS rotation, but he actually looked really good. Good to see him play. Next match, we have Fruit Salad versus Oceanside Tsunami. Miku really popped off in this match on Tracer, but I really think Fruit Salad have to realize that it's the main support's job to keep the off angle in check, and Mafia really has to be confident in marking those.
For Fruit Salad versus Oceanside, I also want to say that Harvest looked like a bright spot on this team. While I was watching Codes, my friend asked me to say this. Noel, please take the Crusaders Love perk. It caused him lots of physical pain when he saw that, and he started crying.
Here we have this week's power rankings. Some movement, but not much. And we have predictions for next week.